I've got the looks and the charm of an old movie star. Cary Grant, if you will, so I find it bizarre that this girl should refuse to step into my car. She must be shy, she'll come around, it's just a matter of time. Aurora, Aurora.
Hey there, Screen Beans, and welcome to Screen Snark, the podcast that celebrates all of the shows that are in our eyes, on our minds, and in our hearts. I am Rachel Corgi Shank.
And I am Matt, a.k.a. Stormageddon.
Ha-ha!
Ha
Take
ha
that.
ha.
You thought we couldn't do it, and yet
Here we are.
we're here again, ready, willing, able to podcast. I'm pumped.
Able
I'm
for
pumped.
sure. Required, doomed to. I mean, all of these words pretty much mean the same thing.
Wow. Wow. Well, Matt,
Yes.
how are you,
I'm
my
o-
friend? Do you need something? Do you need some support?
I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm just tired. But I'm doing great. I'm actually very excited for our guest. That you brought us, Rachel.
Yeah,
For a little behind the curtain is I tend to book a bunch of the guests just because
Yeah,
I have
you
like
have-
this running list of folks that I've wanted to have on. But every so often, Rachel will be like,
personable.
It's
and
not
people
that.
want to
It's-
come talk to you.
it's that I'm obsessed with booking for this podcast. But Rachel,
Yeah.
every so often, will be like, I have a guest and they're awesome.
yeah.
And this is that case.
Hello. I also have friends and acquaintances that I can convince to sit on a Zoom for an hour and some change. You thought it couldn't be done, and here it is. No, I am so excited to start infecting our community with the bug that I've been bitten, the wrestling bug. And I have brought with me a friend and companion, fellow wrestling lover, liver, doer, Rob Spenser. Rob, welcome to the show.
Hello.
Welcome to the masterpiece.
Thank you. I come bringing diseases.
Oh no!
I'm no like the infection
the bug,
spreading.
the,
one.
the
Yeah.
wrestling bug.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've literally
Yeah.
made a metaphor, instantly forgot it.
I was continuing with it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Rob playing along already. Rob, we're so excited to have you. We're also going to talk a little bit later about one of Rob's proteges. We have to.
Yeah.
It's in Rob's contract.
Yeah, there's buzz.
Yeah,
There's like
I
interesting.
did not expect it to be such a long contract. I'll be completely honest with you, but I skimmed a lot of it. So
You could say that it is fruitful by the foot, maybe.
Wow. All right.
yeah,
All right.
I would.
But we'll get into that and all the cool stuff that Rob does wrestling related a little later. For now, as always, we will dive in by talking about the most recent thing we've watched. And the most recent thing I've watched, which was like several weeks ago, because I kid you not, I've had no time to watch anything in like 2 weeks, was I rewatched the MCU cinematic masterpiece known as Captain America: The Winter Soldier.
Subterfuge.
A film that I swear I've talked about on the show before, but I couldn't find it in the records and the logs. But maybe I just didn't look hard enough. But be that as it may, I'm bringing it either again or for the first time, depending on the listener who knows better than us. And like rewatching it, so I don't think I've seen it since I saw it when it first came out on DVD shortly after the theatrical release. I watched it a bunch because it was my favorite MCU movie at the time. But now rewatching it so recently, it holds up and is still one of my favorite films amongst these films because like it was before they constantly kept trying to do the different genre films, and it really felt like a suspenseful spy movie. The characters are really well done. It was our opportunity to see Captain America for the first time outside of the Avengers film and his initial film, The First Avenger, when he was lost in time. And so like it just had this really great pacing. The characters are good. It's some of the best writing Black Widow has had in all of the MCU, which I know isn't saying terribly much, you know, because that character kind of flip-flops as far as good writing goes. But like it's still as engaging as I remembered it. The special effects are phenomenal. And I just love good boy Chris Evans. Like I just can't not love that man. He's so good at this, playing this character. And my favorite thing is the elevator scene. Like, I know it's coming. If you've seen this movie, you know it's coming. There's a scene where, if you haven't seen The Winter Soldier, Captain America gets into an elevator and a bunch of S.H.I.E.L.D. agents join him. They have a little banter. and then he pretty much beats them all up. And it's one of the best shot, tight-knit fight scenes, because typically fights in a small corridor, you can't really see or follow, because they use a bird's eye view for a lot of it and like kind of spin the camera around, but allow you to still follow the action. It's some of my favorite like choreography fighting in the MCU, and it's in this tiny little box.
I love fighting in tiny boxes. Don't you, Rob?
Oh, absolutely. The tinier the box, the better.
tinier the box, the
in
better.
most cases.
Yeah, no, it's definitely one of those movies that like grows every time I watch it. Like
Yeah.
I'm just reminded that like Robert Redford's in this movie.
Yes, he is, and he's
Robert
phenomenal
Redford
in it.
is in this like Marvel version of a spy thriller. It's great.
Yeah. Yeah, I love the casting in this film. It's fun to see characters who come back later who continue to play assholes throughout the franchise. But like, I also really love the small character moments with Nick Fury and with Captain America and Black Widow. I mean, one of my favorite Easter eggs in all of Marvel. So I guess if you don't want to hear spoilers for this movie that's been out for a while, skip ahead a little bit because we are going to spoil it because it's been around.
Captain America, he's got a shield and he
What?
loves to fight Nazis.
Well, I mean, these are true
spoilers.
spoilers.
Wait, where's he from, though?
He's from Brooklyn.
And he can do this all day.
do this all day.
But like the scene where they go into the underground bunker, and like I realized in the theater seconds before the movie lets you know that Armin Zola is there, because I remember in the comics it was either a toy or like a comic, I can't remember, but I had some stuff with Armin Zola in it when I was a kid, and so I remembered the character, but it didn't click in First Avenger. Like they kept saying the name, and I'm like, well, I don't know who's this science guy. And then like when they entered that room and all the computers start to turn on, I went, oh shit. And so when we get like the computerized version of Armin Zola, though it's very short-lived, in typical MCU, we're going to kill off the bad guys kind of way, it was still such a cool moment because I never really thought we'd get that kind of an Easter egg or actually see the like computer version of this character.
Yeah.
And it was so cool.
I just remembered this is the movie that also literally had Batroc the Leaper, and it just went over my head.
Absolutely.
This movie was so serious that I didn't notice Batroc until like second or third blush.
I gotta give a disclaimer of first of all, I'm not like a real smart person, and secondly, like I've been dropped on my head, so I don't have a great memory, especially when it comes to Marvel movies. And like when you said the name of the movie, I'm like, have I seen this one? Like I think I've seen all of them, but I'm never sure if I have. And like I've definitely watched them out of order and like all probably during quarantine, so they all bleed together. So I'm like, every time you're like I don't know if you've noticed my face just being like, oh yeah,
I
the
did
elevator,
see this one.
the basement with the guy on the screens. So yeah. I apologize. I'll probably be like, oh yeah, man, in this movie when Thanos just like does his thing.
I mean, that's fair. I mean, the Marvel movies can tend to blend together, especially the early ones. But like, what I loved about this movie, as opposed to the other ones, is like this was like this is after Avengers, I'm pretty sure. So like we've seen Thanos, but like he's still kind of just a cameo. We don't really know how much they're going to lean into the weird and wild, because it was still pretty grounded in a form of reality, even with Gods of Thunder and robots and stuff, but like it still kind of was rooted in like what felt like a reality of some kind, because we didn't go cosmic as abruptly as we do from Guardians on. So something like the Armin Zola moment felt so wild. It felt like, oh my god, I can't believe they did this. Whereas now with Thanos and Kang and like all these other things, it's like, oh okay, they'll do anything. Like we could go anywhere, and so like it'll still like when we're recording this, it'll air after Multiverse of Madness. But like I guarantee there'll be a moment of Multiverse of Madness where I go, oh my god, I can't believe this was in it. But that happens less and less for me with the Marvel films, because I do expect some kind of ode. Like I've been loving Moon Knight, and like every time Moon Knight does something cool, I go, that's really cool, but isn't that surprising? Because it's Marvel kind of has opened the doors to do just about any of their characters for any reason in any way. Whereas this still felt like in its infancy, like so wild and weird and amazing. Like, oh my God, comic books are real. You know, there was a sheen to it that just kind of is worn. You know, Rachel and I talk about this all the time. We sometimes feel a little worn down by the MCU, but then we watch something we really love and get like really energized again. It's like it ebbs and flows, and Winter Soldier ultimately reminded me of why I love the MCU and why I love it at its best. I mean, the scene where Captain America when we first see the Winter Soldier and Cap throws his shield after him and he just catches it, like, ooh. I can't begin to explain the sound design and that like catch. Like, talking about wrestling, like it feels very much like a good hit in wrestling. It feels like a good fall, because like those always sound more painful than they are, right? That's the point, the theatricality. And like that moment where Bucky catches the shield, it's like the impact is like, oh, like you feel it, like it's really good. And like my favorite moments in wrestling are the same thing. Like when you feel the impact, you feel those moments just by the sound design or the sound effect, as it were.
I feel like that's even like one of those, sorry, not to jump into wrestling too much, but one of those things where it's like
legitimize everything I've been doing on this show for months.
Oh yes.
Please.
No, but it's one of those moments where it's like, you know, in wrestling, if someone throws a strike, like, you know, big strong wrestler throws a strike, and then other wrestlers like, okay, no big deal. It's like, whoa, even match.
Yeah.
And I feel like, that gets you like, this is something's about to go down. These two are you know, in line for each other.
Yeah, and the idea of like, well, that was supposed to be the best, coolest thing I could do. What do I do now?
Yeah.
You know?
My favorite thing about wrestling, because I used to do backyard wrestling and I also used to be obsessed with the more theatrical wrestlers. And so like The Undertaker has always been my favorite, because there's no greater theater, especially as a goth and metal kid, than The Undertaker's theatrics. And my favorite thing was always when I figured out that he did the big boot by like, you know, breaking down a little bit, like he would slap his leg to add to the impact sound. And it's like those kinds of strikes where you're like hitting, or like even like watching The Undertaker, like when someone would go to like try and choke slam him and he would just push their hand away. It's like those moments that feel invincible, or like Hulk Hogan being able to take you down with just a leg drop and the impact as he came down, like all of those kind of theatrical moments. And I feel like the MCU does that really well.
They do,
in its best moments, you know, and those moments with the Winter Soldier in this film really show that, because he's the even match to Captain America. That's the whole point of this film, right? I really loved it rewatching it. It got me hyped again. Not that I've fallen out of it. Like, again, there's just MCU stuff is everywhere, but I often worry with some of the MCU movies that it's a fluke that I love it, right? Like with the exception of Thor Ragnarok and Guardians 1 and a few other films like that are great every viewing. There are other ones that I rewatch and I go, it's fine. It's good. I like it. And others I found new appreciation for. Like I love the original Thor movie more now, having seen the version of Thor we have now in the later films. It kind of adds to that. But like the Winter Soldier is absolutely still as good as the first day I saw it, and like got me hyped again to like jump into those kinds of characters, especially since, you know, like there's, you know, a lot of stuff has happened, and so it was good to go back to those roots.
Had a lot of endings recently.
so much stuff.
It's nice to be like, oh, an intro of someone who's gonna have a whole arc.
Cool.
Wow, how fun.
Yeah.
Like intros a lot more than continuations.
Yeah.
Like I have tickets to the Doctor Strange one, and I'm like, boy, oh boy, my girlfriend is going to get bombarded with questions. Just, are we supposed to know who that is? Who's that one? Okay, wait, what was that from? So, intros, great, love that, love that. More of those, please.
Just drop those titles on the screen, like in reality TV. Just just like every scene's a confessional. It's just like Captain America.
Yeah.
Star Spangled Man with a Plan.
Yeah, it's funny. Like you joke about it, but like Rachel and I have said, like the reason Shang-Chi is one of our favorite films in the MCU is because it's a standalone film within the mess of the MCU.
Yes.
That minus a couple of things.
The third act.
Yeah, pretty much like a chunk of the third act, but minus like that. Like you could really go into that thing blind and still get the broad strokes. And those are my favorite films.
Yeah, that and like Black Panther.
Yes.
I'd say like those two are like my favorite just
Yeah.
because I'm like, all right, I don't need to remember. Memory sucks.
I know stuff, but now I don't have to know too much stuff.
Yeah.
Just
Exactly.
his dad is gone, and he's the king now. That's all I need. Hooray!
Yeah.
R.I.P. Chadwick Boseman. You were too good for this world.
Agreed.
The person you left your legacy to in the Black Panther film, she kind of sucks. But that's a different story. Anyway.
On it. It's fine. Well, Matt,
Yes.
if you had to sum up Captain America, the Winter Soldier, just using 3 measly words, what words would you choose? And remember, they cannot be Captain, America, Winter, or Soldier. Almost forgot. Our
So many
rules.
words you can't choose.
Yeah, I know.
Are there any words left over?
I know.
don't
That's
think so.
every word. There's no words left.
The only one left is Pikachu, so sorry.
My 3 words will be action and nuance.
Action and nuance. Good. That's it. That's a whole sentence, Case.
That's a whole sentence.
That's a do not put any punctuation in it. It's a whole
Look,
sentence.
you already
Case.
know it's going to happen. You know it's going to happen. Rachel's rivalry with Case aside, Rachel, what is the most recent thing you've watched? What have you brought today? Are you
boy-
still on your period piece bullshit?
No. No. Yes. Actually,
Oh,
yes.
no.
Oh my God. Yes. I was like, no. This one's no, and I was like, no. I am. I watched a hyper violent, incredibly trippy, mostly fueled on drugs film called The Northman.
Oh, I heard about this.
Yeah.
All right.
And it's wild. It's great. I don't know. Did y'all watch The Green Knight?
I didn't get to see it. I'd wanted
Okay.
to.
That wasn't a Marvel one, right?
No,
No,
that's just a
That was
regular.
that was an I think
Yeah.
A24 retelling
Oh.
of Gawain, The Green Knight.
I
Dev
never saw
Patel
this one.
plays Gawain. It's really, really good. This had a lot of that sensibility, like very dark, muted, grim, but like having these like really like beautiful moments. Like there's this drug trip that they do like magic mushrooms, the king and the sun, and there's just like this tree of kings, and it's just like these wild shots and just like this gorgeous scenery. It's such a vibe. It's like this weird hyper violent original version of Hamlet, which
interesting.
we can't be mad. We can't be mad about it. I was sitting there watching and I was like, wait a minute. Skarsgård, you're playing a son named Amleth, whose uncle kills his father and marries his mother, and you have to seek vengeance. This is a Hamlet. I found a Hamlet.
You
Here it
found
is.
a Hamlet.
I found a Hamlet,
Oh.
and I'm not wrong. It turns out that this is actually based on an ancient Norse story about Amleth, and it is the inspiration for Hamlet. So this is actually the Hamlet before Hamlet.
Oh.
Which
I
is
wonder how
really
many people were watching Hamlet like, this is just Northman.
This is the Northman. Hello.
Obviously. It's the same
Obviously.
thing.
It's just
I'm
the
a
same
time
story.
traveler, and Will Shakespeare, you're a ripoff.
you ripped off the story of Amleth. How dare? Yeah, and it's a really fascinating piece. Really doesn't make our protagonist absolutely the most correct,
Complicated
there's-
protagonist.
Yeah, a very complicated protagonist whose entire existence is just built around revenge, and you just kind of are going along with all of this, and you kind of love it, but you're like, this is fucking brutal. It's very bloody. It's really it's a lot, but I loved it. Every second was just so like packed with things to think about, this entire situation of like interfamily politic, rightful rulers, the nature of making vengeance your entire life, what it means to honor your fate versus subverting it. I really dug it, and I want to watch it again because it's really a vibe.
I mean, that's always a good sign when you get out of
Yeah.
a movie and you're like immediately like, I have to see that again.
Also,
Like-
great performances. Kidman is amazing. Skarsgård is amazing. Anya Taylor-Joy. Like this is a blockbuster movie that is this kind of like hyper violent yet somber, like original mythos that is just dominated our like pop culture zeitgeist. You know, like The Lion King is Amleth, so like go watch The Lion King, but really violent Norse berserker.
Wild. I remember the first time as a kid when I was as I grew up, I learned that was essentially Hamlet. And I was like, wait, what?
Whoa.
Disney does that? And then, many years later, I would learn, oh no, Disney rips off lots of stuff.
Yeah.
Rips off, finger quotes. So, whatever.
That was me just now. Wow.
Wow.
Lion King is Hamlet?
Lion King is Hamlet. Who
So
knew?
obviously,
Yeah, the Lion King 1.5 is Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead.
oh my God. I feel like you've said that before on this show. I feel like
It's
that's come up.
Part of my core tenets as a media consumer, a deep and abiding understanding that the movie with Timon and Pumbaa just talking about being in the Lion King is just Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead.
Amazing.
It's important.
This is why I have Rachel around, clearly the smarter co-host of the two. The more knowledgeable.
I don't consider this a mark of my intelligence by any stretch.
I'm here to make both of you seem smart. You're welcome.
Yeah. Rachel, I'm curious because obviously you are on 2 podcasts that do talk about the current state of pop culture a lot.
Yes.
How do you feel like Norseman will hold up to other pop culture stuff that's happening right now? I mean, I haven't been following it, but it seems like it's got a lot of buzz around it. Do you think this is something that will be a sleeper hit or that has a chance to like really make bank and blow up big?
I mean, I couldn't really say. I hope that it is a lesson in being able to like put your backing toward auteurs, like obviously the director of this, whose name I have forgotten. I'm going to IMDb because that's what I do on this show.
It wasn't that directed by Robert Eggers?
Yes, it's Eggers.
If my memory serves correctly,
It
just
is
my
Robert
memory.
Eggers. Thank you.
No problem.
Rob.
I just heard about this movie, but I was pretty sure it was
Yeah,
directed by Robert Eggers.
and I'm hoping that the Northman shows that we can do big epic dramas and stuff without having to go laser light in the sky or and not to be like this is an original story. It's obviously a retelling of an ancient story that has influenced storytelling going forward, but not necessarily relying exclusively on marketable IP, but instead getting to do more things that have a voice and are kind of going for something a little more thoughtful, even though also still very like exciting. Like the action set pieces are really cool, and the different ways that Skarsgård's character Amleth like terrorizes the people who murdered his dad, who's played phenomenally, very, very short performance by Ethan Hawke. Willem Dafoe, just holy socks. And it's so like spooky and magic, but like that deep ancient magic too. So, just that hope that we don't have to make action blockbusters that are so cookie cutter. We can really like play in the space of it and be like, we can have an action epic where there's literally a fight in a volcano and there's magical beings, but it can be a little bit more grounded. Eggers also did like The Witch, again, that very great horror movie with like just a period of time and talking about like the role of women through society, and like how groupthink can isolate an entire family, and this is very much like, what do you do when your home is not your home? It was taken from you and you find out that you can't ever go back to that home. Like, how do you move on after that trauma and that loss, and you realize that it never was yours? It's a lot to think about, and I want action movies to smuggle in that stuff more.
Yeah, but also you said fight inside of a volcano,
But
right?
also fighting inside a volcano.
100%.
It
Yeah.
happens. I don't like. Sorry for the spoilers, but I do want people to see The Northman, and they've really kept the whole. There is literally a fight inside of a volcano to themselves, and I refuse to let that abide.
Amazing. Well, yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that like the moments I've been the most surprised watching films more recently is when it was stuff outside of my knowledge base, or even stuff I didn't know a lot about that were fairly original IPs, like, you know, Turning Red, though Pixar is always more or less guaranteed to hit things out of the park. But even when I brought Night in Soho on here, you know, a horror-ish thriller movie by one of my favorite directors, Edgar Wright, like films that I love the Marvel machine as much as everybody. I love Star Wars. I love, you know, big pop culture IPs, but I think I'm always excited when there's an original IP, even if it's influenced by something or based on something, but that feels kind of its own thing, especially when directors and writers are really getting to flex those muscles. And it sounds like The Northman is doing that.
Yeah, and again, it's so weird with its ideas of magic and cunning, and this idea that there is a power that dictates your fate, and you just kind of have to follow that. Told very beautifully by Bjork. Bjork is in this movie.
Oh,
Come on,
okay.
Bjork is
10
in
out of
this
10.
movie.
Done.
Yeah.
This movie
Decided.
is amazing.
You know, you had me at fights inside volcanoes, but Bjork as well. Come on.
Bjork returning to the screen after years away.
Um,
Holy socks, this movie.
Well, it sounds great. If you had to sum up The Northman without using the word Northman, I'll let you use the if you really need to.
I won't. I don't need it. I
You
came up
won't
with
need it.
this
I know,
while I
that's
was
why.
watching the movie.
Oh, good.
I'm prepared.
If you had to sum up The Northman in just 3 words, Rachel, what 3 words would you use?
It's hardcore Hamlet.
There you go.
Ooh.
That's
It's
it. I
hardcore
just
Hamlet.
was
I
sitting
love
there
that.
and I was watching it. And I was like, this is just hardcore Hamlet. And instead of doing a soliloquy about how conflicted he feels about killing his uncle, he's like, yeah, I'm going to go be a berserker and just like light a village on fire and lock some kids in a building. It's fine. Don't worry about it. I'm working through some stuff. Just working through it before I go.
Well,
My
awesome.
fate is my curse. Whatever. And just like the physicality of this piece, like the way that like these men are encouraged to move as berserkers or as they're like tripping on drugs. It's just like this primal, super cool piece. And also I just need more of our people to go see it and claim it before the Nazis do. Like, we gotta get in there.
Yeah.
We gotta get it. It can't be theirs. They say that they gotta respect women in it, so it's gotta be ours.
Yeah. And also, like,
get it.
fuck the Nazis. There's that, too. Sorry if I offended you. No, I'm not. Go fuck yourself.
No,
Whoa.
Yeah.
eat a
as
pile. Your revisionist history is garbage.
Correct. Correct.
The Norse people were a very like global society. They traded all over the place. They like married people outside of their cultures. They were very global. Get off your purity horse. Get out of here. I hate you.
Yes.
Hey, Nazis who have been listening up to this point, fuck off.
Yeah, if you're still here.
Yeah. They're like, wait, I
Yeah.
don't like these people, but I'm going to listen.
Yeah, there's no way there are any Nazis
No,
listening to this
there aren't.
podcast. We alienated them a long time ago, and rightfully so.
true.
Well, Rob, we are now up to our incredible guest. Rob, what is the most recent thing you have watched that you have brought today?
Thank you so much. I'm not an incredible guest, just a regular one. And funny enough, I was kind of on the fence with 2 things, and then you mentioned one of them, so I'm like, that's off the table now, because I just seen Turning Red, so I'm like, you've probably discussed it before. No, we're not talking about it,
Oh, but I
because
love
we
that
are going to
one.
talk about Severance.
Oh shoot! Yeah.
I don't know
Heard
if
about
you've
this.
watched-
I've not
Oh,
seen it, but I've heard about it.
Oh, this show, because I am like so amped up from this show. So it's a Apple TV original. And it's hard to speak about without spoiling to some degree, but I'll say it's essentially it's a show about it stars Adam Scott, and it's dividing your life from your work life. So your home life and your work life, they they put a chip inside of your brain, and when you go to work, you are a different person than when you go home, which is just like a fascinating concept. And then so it's basically like, he goes to work in this giant corporation, is there for 8 hours a day, doesn't know what he does, and then on the other side, the person. So I guess there'll be semi spoilers, but not, it's manageable. I'm not gonna ruin it. But they have what they refer to as innies and outies. So they are like the two different versions, and like, so they really don't know anything about themselves on the inside versus outside. And it's brilliant, because it's building people like from the ground up as humans, essentially. Like they have, like they have their communication skills, they have like their, they understand things in the world, but they don't know their names when they first start. They don't know like a lot of things about themselves. And then, even the way that things work, like they part of it is like, oh, if they do a good enough job at work, they will get a waffle party. And like, it's
I love
not like
waffles.
it's very funny. Like,
it's startup culture.
I mean, to some degree, it's like, it is a great satire of many things. But I think what's just really great about it is like, I feel like it's just really touched on what I think a lot of us have felt in the past couple of years, especially with like jobs and the way things have gone. Because I know, as soon as I lost my job of 7 years, I was like, oh wait, I'm getting paid by the government, and I'm not. You know what? Maybe I have a higher value because I'm getting paid more, by not doing anything than I was for doing things. Maybe I should value myself more and do things that I want to do. And so I feel like people are really like, I feel like the vibe is like, all right, home life versus job life, which is something I think, anyone in any creative field really can latch onto, because I'm like, boy, oh boy, do those things, they come into constant conflict. And then realizing it's like, oh yeah, obviously one side, there is an agenda behind it. There's a reason why they want to cut off. Like, it's like, people have their reasons going in, but also there are reasons from the top down. But it's just like, it's so well done. The performances are so good because some of the people know what's going on and some don't. But like, the whole cast is great. Like, John Turturro's in it, and like,
he's great.
I feel like, right. Like, it's like one of those people where you could be like, yeah, John Turturro's in it. Oh, it's probably amazing, or at least good. Like it's like he will steal the show at the bare minimum if it's something bad. Then like Zach Cherry's in it, and he's like
the best.
The best.
The best.
Spider-Man, do a flip.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And like Patricia Arquette, she just like knocks it out of the park. Like, it's like all these just like really good, really nuanced performances, because it really switches between like an insane screwed up situation and like hilarious, because it's like the same way. It's like, yeah, something like traumatic could happen, but then you're just going to the office, and then all the menial bullshit involved in the office, it's like everything goes through that filter, except that filter is all these people understand.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a good dark comedy, which I haven't seen one in a while. Like, I love I love all forms of comedy, but comedies that make you think and that are like, they have like this kind of dark reality to them. Like, it's always been my
I don't even know if I'd classify it as a comedy. Like, it has like just the right amount of levity, because it's like ultimately kind of a thriller to some degree. Like, it's a mystery. I'm realizing I'm like, oh, I am easily bought if I can watch an episode of something and not quite know what's happening. I'm like, all right, well, I guess I'll have to watch the next one. Yeah. And I think a lot of places are coming hip to that. I mean, like, we were talking about Moon Knight before. I'm like, by the end of the first episode, I'm like, well, we have to keep watching now, don't we?
Yeah, we're all
gotta
just
find out what happened.
Chasing that dragon of Squid Game just forever now.
Yeah, I mean, I've been chasing that dragon since Doctor Who, like the classic Doctor Who. Like, it starts and you have no idea what's going on, and then by the end of the episode, everyone, like, the Doctor figures it out. It's like, I love those kinds of narratives, because I want to know, I want to figure it out, but I want your help. And the shows that guide you that way are great.
Severance, like it gave me that feel like because I feel like they're like the timing is so important and like the pacing of it, and I felt like it was I'd compare it to like Memento in
Oh,
terms
okay.
of like, oh man, it gives you exactly how much you need to know every moment. Um, so I just love it so much, and it's like, yeah, it's funny because it makes me think about my own corporate life,
Yeah.
Interesting.
and
Oh,
the way,
that
yeah, which
feeling
is
of like, I can't think about the things that make me happy right now because I have to
yeah.
send this email.
Yeah, and the important,
Ah!
like, it's like you think of like the monotony and the importance, and like, when I go into work and I look at my coworkers, like, who are really driven by like, their own aspirations or the company aspirations, and not to say there's anything wrong with that, because I'm like, I've been in that myself, but at the same time, I'm like, oh, right now, like for me, my aspirations are not the exact same.
Yeah.
By the way, employer name, if you're listening. Look at those Nazis over there. See what they're
Oh,
getting up
yeah.
to.
What?
Yeah, no, I mean, it reminds me of a show I watched, I think it was last year, 2 years ago. I don't know, time is a lake. But a show called Devs that Nick Offerman starred in. And it was this slow burn kind of thriller about like tech startups and technology overall in the modern world. And like, it sounds like Severance is that kind of same vibe. So it's definitely in my
Yeah.
wheelhouse.
Yeah, and
Also,
then it's also got like a bit of like Black
yeah.
Mirror-ishness to it, with like the brain contraptions, and it's like, oh, this technology could almost exist, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, science fiction is just commentary on our real world fears? Who knew?
whoa,
Whoa,
I thought it was
whoa.
lasers.
Thought we were just really
Could
scared
also
of
be lasers.
lasers.
Yeah, there's no lasers in this
Oh,
show.
Oh,
okay.
There's no
darn.
volcanoes.
Darn.
Spoiler alert. But, so there might be some things that turn people off.
Well, Rob, if you had to sum up Severance in just 3 words without using the word severance, what 3 words would you use to describe this show?
Ooh.
And it doesn't have to be a sentence. It
No,
can
it
be,
could
but it could just be three
like three
descriptors.
words or
Uh, Corporations stink, man.
Yeah, there you go. All right.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
I'm ready to go Office Space now. Where's
Yeah.
the trailer? Let's go.
Man, let me tell you, the first time I watched Office Space after having worked in like a corporate environment for like a year, I was like, oh, I get this movie. Like, I thought I was so smart. It was like,
What's really funny, like I've always been attracted to like a like just corporate satire as a genre of thing, and it's like I've never really held a like a typical like office corporate job. Like for some reason, I'm just like, oh, this is like there's this author Max Berry who I read a bunch like like all of his books are basically corporate satire, and I'm like, oh, these are great. But I'm like, I don't have any context. I just I've seen movies where they have him.
that's amazing. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm kind of the same way. I mean, I've worked in corporate environments, but I think there's just something about that kind of satire that I think just resonates.
Yeah.
Could say something about our capitalist society, especially here
Yeah.
in the United States, but who knows? So, Rob, I'm really excited that you're here. We should mention up top, though, you're actually here to represent someone else, so
To some degree.
to some
Yeah.
degree. So, for those who are not aware, Rob represents Delightful Dan, the goddamn Candyman, a wrestler who Rachel has met before, and
I've had the sweet delight of meeting Delightful Dan.
I have not had the pleasure yet, but maybe someday.
Yet.
Um,
I can introduce you. I know him personally.
Sweet. I'm already. I mean, that's why you're here. But why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about Delightful Dan, the wrestler, and his kind of history and how he got started in the wrestling? Because you've been with him pretty much his whole career, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I've known like because I've had a keen interest in wrestling in the past not even that long, but past decade or so, and reinvigorated, and my love for it as well as Dan's simultaneously. I felt like we were step by step for a lot of the process.
Really just two peas in a pod on this.
Yeah. Yeah, like both him and I were like, oh, let's try this thing out. Let's train. Let's learn how to do it. But yeah, I mean, Dan is he's just a barrel of fun and joy, and he can kind of get on your nerves, but he's a sweet guy, literally and figuratively. but yeah, it actually like my interest in it came through comedy actually, which is like I feel like that's kind of the trend now. I've spoken with other people where it's like the best comedy, like, cause you know, improv's dead, stand up should be dead, sketches, you know, we'll see.
Sketch is
But
like, I think you should leave, and that's it.
yeah, like it's like, all right, you know, a little bit of hope there. But yeah, so like I think the big things in comedy are now kind of like niche, like the break off niche branches. And so I was doing I was involved with the Upright Citizens Brigade, and they had this show. It was actually the longest running show at the theater. Rest in something. But it was called Cage Match, and it was an improv show where two improv teams compete. But in the middle, they would have a comedy wrestling match. And it was basically a bunch of like wrestling nerds, just getting on stage for 5 minutes and doing scripted out things. And the people involved in it, we all got very involved. Like it was like it meant nothing to, like it was the bathroom break to the crowd at the theater, but it was everything to us. And we were like, yeah, you know, like it was always my dream to put on a show where we would do like a whole bunch of like wrestling matches and then a 5 minute improv set where we were just like, all right, now you can use the bathroom because they're gonna do some fucking improv or whatever. So swearing's okay, right?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, you gotta ask.
Yeah.
I
After
listened to
you've
another one.
sweared, obviously.
Yeah.
After we've
I've listened to another episode where you swore, and I
Yeah.
knew that was the case. But you know,
love
you gotta
You
ask.
gotta
I
ask.
love swears.
Ask for forgiveness, not permission.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But yeah, so that like kind of sparked my, because I was a fan as a child, and then like I'd fallen out, as many have for many years. I think the Attitude Era really took me out. I was like, oh, there's a bunch of douchebags telling me to suck it. I don't think wrestling is for me. But yeah, then I got back in it. Yeah, with like some of my friends, I started like getting in on indie wrestling and being like, oh, this is so fun, and like some of the things are funnier than, you know, the comedy stuff I'm surrounded by. I mean, most of the comedy stuff I'm surrounded by. So yeah, I started training. I was like, you know, let me give it a shot. One of my favorite wrestlers, this guy Chuck Taylor, he was teaching the class, and I was like, I'm gonna go learn from him. And Dan came with me, and then yeah, did a little bit there, did a little bit out in Long Island, and then, you know, still doing it in Brooklyn. You know, I've taken a bit of a backseat on it. Like I still like, you know, being in the shadows to some degree, but he's doing great. And I have some other clients, you know, who are around the circuit. You got Stu Stickerstone, who is an MC from Kaiju Big Battle. He's
Nice.
doing great for himself. So, but yeah, it's been a really fun journey, and it really recontextualizes the way you see everything in the world
Yeah,
for him.
I have right, of course,
See,
obviously.
see
Yeah.
what I mean? See what?
Yeah.
See these things that I say to you out loud, where I'm like, everything's wrestling. It's just wrestling.
It's funny because like I'm someone who grew up watching wrestling. I loved it up until right just about at the end of the Attitude Era. Is I stuck through it, and then once the Undertaker became the motorcycle biker version, which I
Yeah,
still
when you realized who he really is.
yeah, I mean, also Mark Calloway's like done interviews and stuff. Like he's talked about, like he's gone between, like he's at a point now. He was on Hot Ones and like he code switches and like talked a lot about how it was freeing to be himself at that point.
Yeah.
which is fun. I mean, look, you've been
It's
wrestling
fair.
as long as he does. Like you should get to do whatever
Yeah.
the hell you want. But like,
Yeah.
But I never heard the end of it from my friends when he started coming out to Limp Bizkit. Like, you know,
And that was the coolest.
this is the cool, so cool.
Actually, funny enough, Delightful Dan, there was a a continuation of that story. There was a breakaway group who basically was formed as like a comedy wrestling project outside of Upright Citizens Brigade, which was basically the like, hey, why can't this be the whole show? And that's where Delightful Dan got his start. And it was very story focused right now on the independent scene. Dan doesn't get as many stories, but there were some fun ones in there, including at some point it was revealed that Dan had a brother who people didn't know about, who he thought had died in the candy factory explosion.
Of
But it
course.
turned out that his brother Candy Cane was still very much alive.
Love it.
And the two formed the Brothers of Confection. And then Delightful Dan would start coming out to his theme song, but with the Limp Bizkit Rollin' song overdubbed on top of it,
Amazing.
just the vocals.
That's
So,
amazing.
a lot of crossover between Dan and
The
the
Undertaker.
old Undertaker there, yeah.
Well, it's funny. Like, I've not had any formal training, but I did do backyard wrestling for years, like any other idiot teenager. And like, I had three personas. I was the Mick Foley of our league. Like, I had an Undertaker, like invincible Superman kind of character. I had a hardcore, like, you know, Mankind kind of like, you know, breaks the rules kind of character. And then I had like a rock and roll kind of like rock star kind of persona. And like,
Nice.
it was just the dumbest thing, but I was like, well, I like at the time, it was like, well, if Mick Foley can have all these characters, like, why can't I have all these characters?
Yeah.
Like, why can't I do that? So I totally respect like Dan doing that and like making those kinds of changes and shifts in your character.
Yeah,
Like,
and that's you know, so much of the fun of it, of diving into the character, like, because there was also like you know, some other characters who have like flown by the wayside a little bit. You know, they might pick up in the future, but you know, like I also represent like people like Laundry Matt.
Yes,
who,
Laundry Matt. I was
yeah, so
hoping
that
we
was
could bring
like
up
that was
Laundry
a
Matt.
UCBW original, and then you know you had Douglas Fir, who is literally a wrestling tree, and you know all these like I feel like the wrestling world is better with all these different personalities, you know.
yeah, absolutely. I think that like what people don't always people focus on the physicality of wrestling, which is super important, right? Especially when you've got these big like with you can't watch Paul White, aka the Big Show, wrestle and go, it's not about the physicality. The man is, you know, the size of a thick tree trunk. Like he's just gigantic, and like physicality is his whole character, or for many years. But also like the nuance of like actually just the performance of these wrestlers is so important, especially the charisma. Like I love The Rock and I love John Cena. I think they're decent actors, but like the reason that they're in movies is because of their character and their charisma, you know, in the ring. I'm curious, Rob, in your experience with the little bit of wrestling you've done, and then of course through the eyes of Dan and other people you represent, like, do you find that that's the case, that like charisma is super important? This being larger than life is super important to being in wrestling?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, yeah, like a thing that gets said a lot at T2T, which is the trading academy that both Rachel and myself are at, is moments over moves. I know it's like kind of a common thing with wrestling, but it's like, you know, a lot of the time it really is, you know, the personality outshines whatever they do. Like, and that I feel like in the Attitude Era, when you know the business was as hot as it ever was, they played around with this a lot. Like you look at the biggest stars, you look at someone like The Rock, and The Rock knew literally everything he said or did was going to become a T-shirt or like
Yep.
famed. And then what did he start doing? He started doing the People's Elbow, which was a joke. It was an absolute, like, it was literally a joke where he's like, what's the stupidest thing I can do that can become like that, you know, the fans will love? And he does, like, it's like, you don't care about him hitting his elbow on someone. You care about the fact that he takes off his sleeve, he raises his eyebrow, he looks around, he swings his arms, he runs to the left, he runs to the right, and then he does a big little dance and then drops the elbow. Like, it's all the presentation together.
Yeah.
And yeah.
For sure. No, I completely agree. I mean, like, one of my favorite moments in wrestling history is all character and all of the moment, because I feel like the crowd also dictates a lot of what you get to do. I remember I think it was one of the WrestleManias. The Rock was set to square off against Hulk Hogan. It was his big return to the WWE as like the NWO's Hulk Hogan. And the crowd turned on The Rock in that match. Unscripted. They turned on The Rock. They started rooting for Hulk Hogan. And so then they like everything changed in the moment. Hulk Hogan started
Yeah.
doing Hulkamania stuff, and like, you know, Hulk Hogan as a person can go kind of get fucked at this point. But
Yeah.
like that moment, I remember watching that live and going, like, it was unprecedented. I was like, oh my
Yeah.
God. And like, I got wrapped up in it, right? How can you not? Like, Hulkamania has always been super infectious within wrestling. And so, like, I love those moments. I think that
Yeah.
a lot of people don't realize there's a lot of science and like understanding on a multitude of levels within wrestling. It's not just the performance, it's not just the physicality, but there's so much give and take with the whole environment of it all.
Yeah. And you realize like different things cater to different people, and what draws people in is different. Like when I started getting back into it, I was like, oh, I've kind of put it this way where it's like, I think like I love like lucha guys, I love flippy guys, like I loved Rey Mysterio, but I think like I was specifically drawn to them when I started watching again because I'm like, look at that cool move. But that I almost consider that to be like a party trick to some degree. Like it's like that will get you in the door. Like it's like seeing someone do a 450 splash is cool. Like it's going to be cool, no matter who sees it, like that's just a cool thing. And I think that can draw people into the door. But then like now it's like, oh, I don't like, it's like I get way more excited when I see someone like reverse out of a wrist lock that I've never like do a reversal I've never seen before, which is like very nerdy and like, like little minutia dumb stuff. But it's like, oh, just to get in the door, there's different things for everyone. And I think, like there's different characters like, and reflecting on it, I know like what drew me to Dan is that like I know as a kid I loved the larger than life, like ridiculous characters, the ones who held several jobs while they were wrestling, like, like the Doink the Clown, loved those kind of people. And it's like, oh yeah, kids also really like wrestling. Like it was like a lot of people I think go into pro wrestling, shortly after their teens, if not in their teens, and everything they try to do is to impress the teenage version of themselves, which they don't realize is pretty lame. Like you were lame as a teenager. I hate to tell, like no matter,
Sorry.
everyone was lame. Yeah,
I
No,
know teenagers
Rachel,
are so scary, but like truly so lame.
yeah, Rachel, you were such a lame teenager.
I know, I truly was.
Um,
You said you're doing things to impress your teenage self. My teenage self would be horrified at all of
Yeah.
the things that I've done. Like,
Yeah.
what the hell? You messed it up. What did you do? It's like I lived, baby.
Yeah.
I lived.
I mean, ironically, maybe I was a cool teenager because when I was 14, I went to the Gathering of the Juggalos, and they had a wrestling ring where you just had to sign a waiver, and then you could go in and do whatever you want. And some kid came up to me with the waiver, and he was like, "Hey, you want to wrestle?" And I said no. And I think the rest of my life has been like, you know what? Well, that was a mistake. Let's fix that. So to some degree, that's true. But I think for the most part, I'm like, I like Dan because like his ethos is very much like, what did you like as a child? And it's like Delightful Dan is all about candy and like fun. And like, it's like, for some characters, it's like wrestling is all I have. It's like, no, wrestling can also be just fun. Like it's a fun thing that I enjoy. And I think Dan speaks to that a lot. Like I'd even like, I'm like, oh, that's what draws me to him. I think, it as much as like it started off surface level of like, look at this silly, goofy guy. It's like, oh, this is really like, a reflection of kind of just like the purity of childhood and not being bogged down and not judging things for, being immature or stupid. Because it's like the older we get, the more we're like, oh, wait, that shit's cool.
Yeah, and it's nice to be consistently reminded that wrestling is silly, and that's one of the best things about it. Just knowing that you can walk into a show and see a guy with a goat fight a guy in like a punk fest. Like it's just great. It's just wonderful.
I mean, yeah, some of my favorite things about it is just how goofy and silly it is. And like, man, like we're talking about The Undertaker, like the Buried Alive matches and things like that. Obviously, like not even fake, just theatrical. Like I love, like The Undertaker used to make lightning strike the ring to light fires. Like, it's all, Kane made fire erupt from the ring. Like, I love
Jake
how
the Snake put snakes on people.
it's just the desire to just buy into the goofiness is why wrestling is great. Like, I remember the movie Ready to Rumble so clearly. The WCW led movie Ready to Rumble.
Oh my goodness. I watched it a few years ago, and boy oh boy, that movie. No, it's not that it doesn't hold up. It's just like it doesn't pick a stance.
No.
Like it's like it is simultaneously like featuring WCW and mocking every wrestling fan who went to see it. It's like, who is this for? I love it. I love it to death.
But like, I think why I still love that movie is because I still to this day love David Arquette, but also because it's stupid. The whole movie is stupid. And like, once you accept that fact, it's so much more enjoyable. Like, and that's why I continued to even passively enjoy wrestling, even if I don't watch it anymore as much as I used to, because I just like how goofy it is. Let it be silly. Let it be ridiculous. Like, I like, some of the things that bored me in the more modern era is like, as much as I like John Cena and Randy Orton and these like superstars who are like just beefcakes, is their stories aren't as interesting. It's just like, I hate you, or, there's intrigue, but it's not the like, it's not the Doink the Clowns of the past, or like those kinds of just goofy, or in the $1 Million Man, like these goofy, larger than life, stupid characters that you can't help but root for, I think is kind of when it's at its best.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And like the buy-in is such a, like, it's so, because I've talked about this with one of my good friends, and I'm like, I speak about this with comedy, where it's like, one of my favorite things is like seeing something that's a joke, and then like you forget it's a joke in the first place because you're so invested in it. And just like an example of this was when I was getting back in, there's a company called Chikara I was very into. It's no longer really around, but they had like, it was a very like comic book inspired, larger than life, big characters. And they had one character who was essentially a baseball. He wore a baseball lucha mask. And there was another character who was a football guy. And at some point, it was established that they were related. And the way they were related was that they were step cousins-in-law. Now, at some point, I did the math on this, and I drew out a family tree to figure out what is a step cousin-in-law. And it's basically strangers. Like that is basically two people who don't know each other. But the way that they just kept repeating it and acted like, we are family, we are bonded by blood, I'm like, cool, I'm in.
Let's do it.
Like, even though as silly as that initial premise is, I'm so in for it. And it's like, it really, like, once the football guy betrays the baseball guy, or vice versa, I am so invested because they are family now.
Sure. I mean, it's the same thing that movies do. Like, Rachel and I have talked about this before, but it's why people love the Fast and the Furious movies,
I was just
right?
gonna say the Fast and Furious. These are strangers, but they're family, and I believe it. And I believe it every single time when Dominic Toretto's like, we're family, and it's like, yeah, you'll die for each other. Go to space. I love you.
I think there's an important level of sincerity within any good comedy or any good action, right? Like, you want to feel for these characters, and like the winking at the camera can be fun, but like, I think it can be just as fun to have something absolutely bonkers and over the top, but don't wink about it. Just do it. Just go for it. Because it makes people believe, right? It goes back to the Hulk Hogan thing. Like Hulk Hogan was ridiculous as a wrestler from start to finish, but you bought into it because when he started to get pumped up, you got pumped up. You just bought into it. Like, he's hulking out. Like, it's all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I've cried on many occasions with the silliest of wrestling things. Like a friend of mine is this character, Sean from Michaels. The art make kid.
Amazing.
Yeah, and it's just like every visual gag you could possibly do with art store supplies, and it's just like, clearly a parody, clearly like ridiculous, but like at one of the XSW shows, Sean from Michaels like got on one knee and proposed to his now wife, and it's like,
Amazing.
I'm like, and that was real. Like it was like I'm crying watching like this person who has googly eyes glued like up and down his butt, and it's like, I mean that's real, but also it's like it doesn't matter if it's real or not because Shawn from Michaels just brought me to tears, you know. And it's like wrestling can do that in the most ridiculous of ways.
Oh yeah, and
Yeah.
just this idea that we are allowed to invest in this, that we are given the space and the encouragement as the watchers of this. I remember it wasn't even like a pay-per-view match. It was the Lucha Brothers. I think it was versus FTR. And FTR
Oh, yeah.
took off
that was
Penta's
good.
mask, like tied him up to the ropes, and then Penta
Yeah.
had to fight with his hands over his face because luchadors, if their mask comes off, they don't wrestle anymore. That's the end.
Yeah.
It's like it's sacred.
Yeah.
And just this like very like strange moment of a man covering his face, realizing that he's doing it in the defense and the protection of his baby brother. You're just like, this is what I needed. This is the
Yeah.
human moment. Through the lens of meaty meat just mashing into each other. Couldn't believe it. Couldn't believe it. Just
Yeah, it's unbelievable what they're able to do in this. I'm curious, Rob, as someone who has been so tied so close to wrestling, especially lately, is there any media you've consumed that you think portrays wrestling really well? I know media has done it dirty in different places, but is there like any media that you're really attached to that represents wrestling?
I'm trying to think. Yeah, because it's like it's always like kind of like swayed in certain ways. I mean, like Aronofsky's the wrestler. Like I wasn't really huge into wrestling when I saw it, so that might be worth a revisit for me because I
Right.
remember loving like that and with Black Swan and like it's like oh yeah they're counterpieces to themselves and like yeah, I mean, I think there is like I think more and more like it is becoming more respected in the way it's portrayed. Like I'm like, because I think about watching Ren and Stimpy when they would get thrown into a wrestling ring with these big beefy guys who would just beat them up.
Yeah.
Versus now it's like you have things like Glow and then even I guess the now canceled Dark Side of the Ring, which is more of a documentary series.
Right.
That one shines a light really interestingly, but yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think of like what else has portrayed it recently. Like I know there's a show called Heels, I want to say,
Yeah.
which I haven't seen. I've heard good things about because I feel like there's now more kind of input from wrestlers, and I think I think people who saw The Rock or John Cena perform when they went to movies, everyone like non-wrestling fans were like, "Oh my god, I can't believe they can act," and everyone else was like,
Yeah,
I
of
mean,
course.
yeah, it's like we've watched them, and then like Roddy Piper was doing that in the
Oh,
'80s. Like
yeah.
he was like they're Lou Albano. Like it is best when it is tied with other aspects of the culture, and then like even other people coming in because it used to be very much like a like a publicity stunt to some degree, and it still kind of is like when you have like Tiny Lister at WrestleMania against Hulk Hogan, but then you have more recently like people like Bad Bunny who have like gotten really good, and like even whichever I think it's Logan Paul, one of the Paul brothers, like you know put the work in to show off like respectability in it, and then like the Jackass crew,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that all happened this year. All like it's wild. Bad Bunny I guess was last year, but like I think they're like the conscious level of respect I think is going up, and then now also because there's like it's not monopolized to the extent that it has been for the past 20 years with like especially with AEW. It's like oh there's I think it's the appeal of it is growing hopefully in a way that like it's more respected.
Yeah, I feel like with internet culture, especially as it is now and how plugged in and online most of us are, there's a ubiquity to wrestling that didn't exist before. And a lot of wrestlers also kind of like I think of Xavier Woods, right? And how
Yeah.
he's had this YouTube channel for ages. He works for G4.
Yeah.
And he's still
Yeah.
won King of the Ring and has become king. You know, like he's made that work. You know, so many, like, kayfabe is a word that people know, and like,
Yeah.
I think there's this understanding of wrestling as a science and as an art that just didn't exist before, that has only made its popularity grow.
Yeah, I think the the demystification and just like the crossover appeal. Like I like one of my favorite wrestlers, who someone I've been lucky enough to work with on several occasions through XSW is Orange
I
Cassidy.
love Orange
And
Cassidy.
yeah, and this is someone who like has, especially coming from the comedy world, it's like has really found his way into circles of comedy because he like his nuance. He is also, in my opinion, one of the best in the world in terms of wrestling, but what he's most known for is like his comedic timing and like basically, he is too cool and too casual to wrestle. Like he's very good at it, but he chooses not to be, or he chooses not to wrestle. And like, other opponents will like come up with their fists out and he will put his hands in his pockets. And that's really kind of like, it's such a simple thing, but it makes such a lasting impression across the board, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Rob, I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us today and to be here. Before we wrap up and before we ask you our final question, I would love to give you an opportunity to do your job because I don't want to get a call from Dan later. But I guess tell folks where they can find you and find Dan and all the other folks you represent online on the internet, where they can go check out the stuff that you do.
Yeah, and where they can
Sure.
see Dan wrestle live.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'll do my plugs quickly. My Twitter is at the Crob, THECROB. I don't know. I say some stuff on there. I think my TikTok is Bobby Spence. TikTok is my favorite platform. It's the best one. Delightful Dan the Goddamn Candyman can be found on pretty much every social media, Twitter, Instagram, probably Facebook, TikTok, all at was it at Goddamn Candyman. So yeah, if you look that up, and then what else? Where can he be found? I would also highly recommend following the social medias of IWW, which is Industrial World Wrestling. That is, I'd say, now the home promotion, or one of the home promotions for Delightful Dan, as is Extremely Serious Wrestling, XSW. And yeah, Dan's going to be showing up at some T2T student shows, some IWW shows. Has some things lined up hopefully in the near future. Stu Stickerstone could be found at Kaiju Big Battle shows. So a lot of cool things to keep your eyes out for.
Amazing. And it's super easy to do. I just followed all of those things just now on Twitter.
You just did like my bit.
I did your bit because you are already following all that stuff.
Of course I was already following.
Of course.
Dearest Rob and Darling
My
Dan.
pleasure. Maybe someday we'll do a briefer segment with Dan. I know he can be a little much in long podcast intervals, but we appreciate.
He's been on long podcasts before, so I'm sure he'd be up for that.
but we are happy to have you here, Rob, as his representative. You've been a delight. We're gonna ask you to sit.
Thank you.
You're gonna ask you to sit tight for a moment while we thank some people.
Yes,
absolutely.
Thank you so much to John Presnell for the use of the song "Aurora" off the album "Fair Game" featuring Stefan Rimbaud. What a great entrance song for this podcast as we come down the ramp into the ring of your podcatchers.
Wow, I didn't know where you were going with that wrestling metaphor.
I didn't either. It broke down real bad in the middle. I think I pulled it in at the end, though.
I think you hit the ramp with a stride. I don't know. I got nothing. We would also like to thank the incredible Katie Bug, who designed our show art. Thank you, Katie.
Yes, it truly pops.
And who else do we want to thank, Rachel?
Oh, and we want to thank our home promotion, the Certain Point of View Podcast Network, for continuing to renew our contracts despite all of the breakdowns that occur between us and Case, especially. We love you. Like us on platforms where you're listening to things. We do that one next, don't we?
Yeah. You can find this show and a ton of other shows at certainpov.com. You can find a permanent invite link to our Discord server where you too can scream about wrestling in the appropriate channel.
Via
I don't know what
text.
channel that would be in. Via text.
Type in all
and of
caps.
All caps, all the time. And then, of course, you can also follow us in all the different social media places. We're screen_snark on Twitter. We are screensnarkpod@gmail.com if you want to send us an email or guest recommendation, recipes, all sorts of good stuff there. Yeah. And then also rate and review us on your podcatcher of choice, mostly Apple Podcasts. It helps us to grow the audience.
Yeah, we love you for listening. Oh no, Matt's getting the light. We gotta go.
But God, we're such a mess tonight. But that said, Rachel, if you would be so kind as to ask our guest the final question.
I'm so excited. So Rob, if you could choose one trope from movies and television to instantly and magically become true in your life, which trope would you choose?
Oh my goodness gracious. On the spot, it's very difficult.
That's why we
Let
asked.
me see. See, I feel like this is just like bad podcast
No, it's
time
perfect.
because I have to think about it.
We do this every other week.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
always this.
I don't think I got to the end of the episode I listened to. I should have done that. I always should do that.
Surprise.
Yeah.
This is how we
A
tell
good
who
a
the
trope.
real.
A trope. I feel like the trope of I'll be consistent with what I talked about. The trope of never seeing the protagonist at work.
Oh, yeah, you could just skip the work
I don't know if that's a
segments.
trope, but I feel like it's just like
I love
Yeah.
that one.
That's good. It's
That's a
good.
great
I mean that
one.
is basically the premise of the thing I talked about today. But yeah, if you could just skip to the action.
Love that. The skip to the action trope in your own life. You wouldn't have to sit
Yeah.
at work.
Yeah.
You could just jump to the fun part.
Most of the time, we don't see these movie
Yeah.
critters in their jobs unless it's specifically
Skipping the
about
bathroom.
the jobs.
like yeah, just skipping all the unimportant
Yeah.
stuff.
I love that. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Well
The
done.
commute.
Oh my goodness.
Well, Rob, thank
I
you.
don't know if it's a trope, but
It's anything could be
Thanks
a
for
trope,
indulging me.
technically.
yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rob, for being here. This has been a
thanks,
blast.
Rob.
Thank you so much. I had a lot of fun. I hope I didn't mess this up for
Oh my
you.
gosh,
You did
no.
not at all. You were great. You were amazing. I also want to thank, of course, my incredible, brilliant, delightful, athletic, and talented Rachel Quirky Shank co-host. I screwed that up, but we're gonna leave it
I loved
because
it
we're
so
on a
much.
roll.
I just remembered that I have to thank my It's Hardcore Hamlet co-host, Matt, aka Stormageddon.
Oh, it never gets old. And I, of course, want to thank our incredible
think of adjectives
listeners.
fast enough. So now it's just the movie I watched. You're
It's
that
fine.
this week.
Look, they line up
Congrats.
sometimes. It's fine.
You get Bjork
and of
this
cour-
time, so
I did.
don't be
I
mad.
got Bjorked. That sounded dirtier than I meant. Anyway, I got to
Yeah,
get us out of here. Thank you, of course, to our incredible listeners. We adore having you here. Thank you for sticking through whatever the hell this was.
A
And we will
podcast.
see you at the movie. We will see you at the movies or on a couch somewhere. Bye.
Aurora, 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 Aurora. Metal to magnet, she will be mine. Aurora.
It's a podcast.
Okay.
It's a podcast.
So, I have a question. Have you ever wanted to get into comics, but you just didn't know where to start? Well, welcome to Comics Quest. I'm JD Martin, and every week I sit down with a guest to talk a comic that I think anybody can pick up and start their comics reading journey. We take a look at psychedelic sci-fi, fantastical action, heart-wrenching love stories, and of course, superheroes. So check us out at certainpov.com or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
CertainPOV.com.